was a kid, my family went on a lot of road trips. We had a pretty large family, and they were scattered all over, so we would drive around several times a year to visit them. One year, when I was 5 and my older brother was 7, we were traveling to Oklahoma to see some cousins. It was a long drive, and on the way, my parents stopped at McDonald's. My brother and I liked these because of the play places that they had, and we would play in them all the time. They would always have the tunnels and slides that were fun to go on. I remember this one looked especially big, so I was excited. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but I know that it was nighttime, and there wasn't anybody else in the play place at all. That didn't bother me though, it just meant more space to play. As my parents ordered the food, I ran into the play area and took my shoes off. Then I climbed up into one of the tubes. There were a good number of them connecting to each other with small stairs and ladders going up and down. It was a pretty fun play place. I explored for about a minute and then went into a new tunnel. But when I did, I saw something. It looked to be a grown man. I could just see his pants and shoes because the top half of his body was around the corner, going into another area. I stared at him for a few seconds, then I suddenly got the urge to leave. I didn't know what a grown man would be doing inside of a kid's play place, and I couldn't tell if the man was asleep or what. I turned around to go back, but as soon as I did, I heard the man move for the first time. He turned his body around, and I saw the man's head. He had really messy hair and a scruffy beard. I realized I didn't know my exact way back, so I turned around and crawled as fast as I could past the man towards one of the slides leading out of the play place. As I went past, I suddenly felt his hand reach out and grab my leg. I kept crawling and was able to break free from his grip. But then, I heard him start to come after me. I sped up and crawled to the tunnel and dove for the slide head first. As I did, I felt the man once again grab me, this time by the ankle. I kicked around like crazy, and after a few seconds, was able to slip away from him and slide down the slide. Once I came out of the bottom, I ran and grabbed my shoes and then ran to my parents. They had just gotten the food, and my brother was still with them. I asked if we could eat in the car and leave, and they didn't mind. As we walked out, I looked into the play place, but didn't see the man. We got into the car and began to drive away to get to our hotel. As we were pulling out of the parking lot of McDonald's, I looked back at the play place through the window and saw the man's face pressed up against a window from inside the play place, staring back at me. This story happened when I was 6 years old. It was quite a few years ago now, but it's something I will never forget. It was a Saturday afternoon, and my mom took my sister and I to Burger King. Back then, Burger King used to have these play places for kids in a lot of their restaurants. When we got there, it wasn't all that busy, but there were a few other people. My sister and I entered the play place, which had a few other kids playing in it. We explored it for about 10 or 15 minutes, and the other kids ended up leaving as well as my sister at that point. I heard her call down to me that it was time to eat. I wanted to go down the biggest slide to leave, so I made my way through some tunnels in the play place to get to the top where the biggest slide was. It was one of those slides that was covered all around. When I got up to it, I noticed there was a kid sitting in front of the entrance to it, blocking it. I hadn't seen this kid before, so I was a little confused how he got up here so fast. I waited for him to go down the slide that he was sitting in front of so that I could go down, but he wasn't really moving. I waited for at least a minute, and the kid just sat there kind of like he was staring ahead into space. I couldn't see his face because he was facing the slide, but he was wearing a red and white shirt and had blonde hair. Finally, I got impatient, and I asked the kid if he was going to go down the slide, because I wanted to. The kid didn't turn around and answer me at all. He just kept sitting there in the same position. Then finally, he got in and went down the slide. I was glad he finally went down and I could now go. I was impatient and I was in a hurry to eat, so almost immediately after the kid, I got in the slide and slid down. As soon as I let go, I realized I hadn't allowed enough time between his slide and mine, and I'd probably run into the kid at the bottom. But as I got around the corner of the slide and could see out to the end, I saw the kid wasn't there. I reached the end of it and got out and looked around. The kid was nowhere to be seen at all. I walked over to my mom and sister, who were sitting at the table right next to the play place in front of me, and were already eating their food. I sat down with them and asked them if they saw the kid that slid down right before me. They both told me that they didn't see anybody come out of the slide ahead of me at all. When they said that, I got a chill throughout my body. Something about that kid just seemed so strange, and I don't know how to explain it. I did my best to just forget about it, but it always eats at me who that kid was when I think about it, and how he just disappeared like that. The story I'm about to tell you happened in the year 2003. I was a little kid at the time, and I loved to play in the play place whenever I was at a restaurant that had one. On this day, it was McDonald's. It was the springtime, but I don't remember the day of the week that it was. It was sometime in the afternoon, and my mother took me. Like we often did when we went to the play place, she sat at a table and looked after me as I played. I remember this time, it was fairly busy and there were quite a few kids running around. I had a fun time playing, and mainly climbing through the tunnels to the top, and then sliding down the different slides. I kept sliding down and then going back up and doing it again. At one point, I saw my mom get up and go to the bathroom. There was a few other people in the room sitting at other tables, and this one old guy sitting in the corner. I noticed the old man was staring at me as I went through the play place. I went down the slide, and once again as I reached the bottom, I saw the man was still staring at me. Then he got up from his seat in the corner and began to approach me. I quickly got up and headed back for the entrance to the play place again, but the man followed me until he saw my mother come back out of the bathroom. Then he turned around and walked in another direction. I went back in and kept playing until my mother told me it was time to leave roughly 10 minutes later. As I got out of the play place and went back to her, I looked and saw the old man in the corner was still there, and we made eye contact for a split second. My mother and I walked out of the play place and then outside from McDonald's. As we did, I noticed the old man leaving as well, and he walked out behind us. This made me feel uncomfortable, and I thought maybe he was going to go up to me and say something. But when I saw him go to his car at the other end of the parking lot and get in, I was relieved. We drove home, and I don't remember exactly what I did after that, besides playing on my Game Boy and watching some TV like I always did back then. When nighttime came, I went to bed in my room, but I awoke in the night sometime. I remember not knowing why I woke up, and I looked around. It was all dark in my room, but for some reason I was wide awake. I looked at my clock to see it was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when I heard the bush that sits right outside my window being moved around. I looked out my window, and at the very second I did, I saw the man from McDonald's staring directly at me. It lasted about 1 second before I saw him duck down real fast, and then I sprang out of my bed and ran directly to my parents' bedroom next door to mine. I woke them up, and they went out to look, but the man had gone away. We did, however, hear the sound of a car starting and saw a car driving away from the front of our house quickly. I slept in my parents' bedroom the rest of that night and ended up sleeping in there for about 2 weeks after that. My parents did go to the police, but I don't believe the man was ever found. This is a story of a time when I was a kid at the McDonald's play place. I remember I would go there quite a bit as a kid, usually with my brother and sister. We would always go to the same McDonald's, which was only about a mile from our house and walking distance. One of my older brothers would usually take us, and we'd play around while he played on his PSP. One summer, We went there and all of us were playing around. An employee came in the room and started chasing some of the kids around. He seemed to be joking and it was all in good fun. The guy was probably in his 20s and wore the McDonald's shirt with a tie. He started chasing us around as well and even crawled halfway up a slide saying he was going to eat us. I thought it was kind of annoying, but it was whatever. We came back about a week later and the guy was there once again. It was more of the same with him just chasing us around and yelling at us. There was one more time when we saw the guy there after that. It was roughly a month later, and this time he got a little more crazy. I remember he waited for me at the end of a slide and screamed in my face as I got to the end, then literally climbed all the way into the playhouse chasing me. After that time, we didn't go back for a couple of months, mainly because we were tired of him annoying us. When we finally did go back to that McDonald's, the man wasn't there. I remember that time my older brother made a comment to a worker who was sweeping the floor that the man was finally gone. The worker then told him that that guy turned out to not even work at McDonald's and had been arrested for attempted kidnapping just several weeks earlier. After I heard that, the whole thing just seemed really creepy to me. Sometime when I was a kid, probably at least 15 years ago, I was with my family out of town. I don't remember exactly where we were or where we were going, but I do remember we went to a Hardee's restaurant to get some food. We all walked inside, my mom, my dad, me, and my brother. When we got inside, we ordered food and then went to sit down. I remember the place was completely empty with nobody else eating there at all. They had a little room connected to the dining area, and it had a ball pit in it. I suggested that we went and sat in there, so we did. As we were waiting for them to bring us our food, I went to the ball pit to play around. I remember it was my first time being in a ball pit, and it was pretty cool. But as I was in there, I wanted to reach the bottom, and when I did, I felt something in there that wasn't a ball. I picked it up wondering what it could be, and when I saw what it was, I noticed it was one of those Polaroid pictures, the kind that develop right out of the camera after you take it. It was all white, but when I flipped it to the other side, I saw there was a picture on it. The picture appeared to be me and my family walking into the Hardee's just minutes before. It looked like it had been taken out of a window inside the restaurant. It gave me the chills to see it, and I took it back to my parents and brother and showed them. They found it very interesting, and my dad even looked around the restaurant to see if anyone was in there, but said he couldn't find anybody. We all laughed it off, but to this day, I still wonder who took that photo and why.